Hello everyone and welcome back to TowerGate. It is day 276, Saturday, December the 9th, 2017. Thank you so much for tuning in to this, unfortunately, late Saturday evening edition of TowerGate. Yeah, I had the video ready to go and had a corrupted file and it failed, so I get to do it all again. But I have to go fast because we have a lot to get to. So here we go. First of all, I want to thank Gary for the link that he provided on the, I believe it was the day 275 or 274 TowerGate video. He provided a link for us to the Circa story, which is a article, I assume it's Sarah Carter, but it could be someone else over at Circa, where the article is basically about, did the FBI retaliate against Michael Flynn by launching the Russia probe? And of course now we know what he's caught up in. So anyway, I highly recommend that you click on that link and read the story. It's very good. It's not that long. Only takes about 10 minutes to read or so, maybe less than that. So this is not a new story, actually. This story was around about 6-8 weeks ago. I think we mentioned it here on TowerGate. But now, since Michael Flynn has pled or cut a deal, admitted to lying to the FBI or whatever, the story's back. But it's a very good story, and it reveals what may possibly be a very good legal defense for Michael Flynn if his attorneys are wise enough to use it, and they should, because there's some pretty compelling evidence here. So let's go ahead and go through what the story is talking about. So it appears that the FBI launched a criminal probe against Flynn 2 years after he intervened on behalf of a female FBI agent. Her name is Robyn Gritz, G-R-I-T-Z, who had accused Andrew McCabe and other top FBI officials of sexual discrimination. Flynn offered to testify on her behalf. Now, the FBI then sought to block Flynn by keeping him and others from being able to testify on behalf of Robyn Gritz. The case, of course, is still pending. It has not been resolved yet. This is one of these cases that people were talking about that McCabe is involved in. Now, 3 FBI employees told Circa that they personally witnessed McCabe make disparaging remarks about Flynn during the time that Flynn emerged as a central figure in the Russia case. We also have 3 FBI agents who suggested that the leaked phone call between Flynn and Russian Ambassador Kislyak was leaked to the media by McCabe or one of his allies at the FBI. Okay, so essentially what this story is saying, and it goes on, there's more to it, but the nuts and bolts of this story is that there's this female FBI lawyer, I assume she is. Most people at the FBI are either lawyers or accountants. So this female FBI officer, Robyn Gritz, her career is on the fast track. All of a sudden she finds herself working under McCabe and some others at the FBI, and she notices her career stops moving, and so she files a sexual discrimination lawsuit against McCabe and other top officials at the FBI. Now, at the time, General Flynn had worked with Robyn Gritz, and so he came to her defense, and he worked pretty hard on her behalf. He sent several letters and did various things to try to stand by her, to say, hey, this is a very solid, very highly qualified person. I've worked with her before, and if she feels has a sexual discrimination suit, I want to support her because I believe she's a quality person, and I want to give her whatever backing I can. Well, this caused the FBI to then turn on Flynn, and they went to court to block Flynn and others along with Flynn who were going to support Robyn Gritz. So now they go and they start blocking Flynn and other people from being able to assist Robyn Gritz with her discrimination suit against the FBI, which is of course still going on. Then of course after that we get these FBI employees who turn up and tell Circa that they had witnessed McCabe saying bad things about Flynn. And this would make sense, of course, because it's McCabe who's the #1 person in this sexual discrimination lawsuit. And of course, Flynn is opposing him by supporting Robyn Gritz. And then, of course, to make the suggestion, these same 3 FBI informants are also saying that they also believe that it was McCabe who's behind the leaking of the Flynn Kislyak phone call. Well, that would make sense, because we've been trying to get to the bottom of who leaked that call for the longest time, but no one seems to be able to do it, even though it shouldn't be hard to do. Well, maybe that has something to do with McCabe is the guy in charge of running that, and he's the guy that's guilty of it. No, he's not going to do anything to produce the evidence. He's certainly not going to out himself, is he? No, he's not. So, anyhow, purely as a legal defense for Michael Flynn, I think that this would be a very strong legal defense if he can show that this case was brought against him as a revenge. I don't know in a legal proceeding whether or not that would be allowed into the legal proceeding that he's involved in now, because it's about him lying to the FBI. So whether or not they can use that in their legal defense, something tells me they cannot, because it's not pertaining to this specific case as far as the court might be concerned. But, you know, to me, to a lot of you, to Flynn, it would certainly be pertinent, because if in fact the entire reason that they went after Flynn was to punish him for supporting Robyn Gritz, who's opposed to McCabe, then that would certainly explain why McCabe would want to go after Flynn. So, is McCabe going after Flynn, and was he behind the leaking of the phone call? Those are 2 very good questions that I think Michael Flynn's attorneys should want to look into. So, it's a very good story, and it's up on Circa. So you can either probably just Google Circa and go to the website and scroll down and find the story, or you can go back to my day 275, 274, one of those 2 TowerGate videos, and click on the link provided by Gary. So thank you very much, Gary, for providing that link. It's well worth your time to read that. It's very interesting, and it sounds like there's an awfully strong case, a lot of evidence to suggest that this is exactly what's going on, and that Michael Flynn was the victim of revenge. Surprise, surprise, surprise. It looks like Beverly Young Nelson has admitted now to forging that some of the things that were written there in that yearbook. Now, why is she coming out now? Well, it's because Judge Roy Moore is pursuing a lawsuit. And she and her attorney both know that once they get into court and they bring in the handwriting experts and they take a look at that, they'll probably find that the document was forged. They'll find that this entire thing was a setup. And, of course, that's making them quite nervous. So she might be wanting to back out. But it looks like Roy Moore is not going to let that happen. It looks like he's going to pursue this thing. So maybe she thinks that by having this press conference and admitting that she forged it is somehow going to make Roy Moore go, okay, I'm vindicated now, I'm going to go away. But I don't think that's going to happen. Roy Moore, and his response to this is he's going full bore into this lawsuit. And this should definitely get at Gloria Allred as well, because at some point she's going to have to come out and say whether or not she knew that this was a forged document, or if she knew there was some sort of a political dirty tricks campaign going on. She is herself going to become a target of a criminal investigation, or at least ways the target in the civil hearings. And once that happens, of course, she's obligated by the California bar to operate ethically, and this would be a violation of ethical standards by an attorney, and therefore she could be disbarred, which she should have been years ago anyway. She's already got 2 other issues that the California bar are looking at involving her, and this would be number 3. And this is a big one because it's in regards to a federal election that she is a part of. Now, Roger Stone says that he has a source that's telling him that Karl Rove was behind this, the Bush dirty trickster that we're all very familiar with. So Karl Rove is a lowballer. He's a dirtball. And wouldn't surprise me at all to find out if Karl Rove was behind this. And if he was, then he too could find himself in some, at the very least, he could find himself as the target of Roy Moore in a civil suit, as well as, he's meddling in a federal election. And there are crimes involved. So I hope that this all comes out, and I hope that we learn whether or not Karl Rove was the one. And keep in mind, I'm the one that said a long time ago when this first came out, when everybody says, oh, this is Democrats trying to take down Roy Moore, I'm the one that said, hey, you know what? I think that I don't know why the Democrats would go to that much effort in a state where, you know, winning that seat in Alabama is nearly impossible. I don't think the Democrats are financially in a position to expend those resources in a race that they know they have practically no chance of winning. To me, it seemed a lot more like that it would be the neocons and the Republican deep staters who would want to upset Roy Moore and take him out. So I said that from day one. So I would not be the least bit surprised to find that Turd Blossom is behind this, working along with, and he'll work with anybody in this type of a dirty tricks campaign. But either way, Beverly Young Nelson has now outed herself and admitted to forgery on that particular document on the yearbook. So we'll have to see if this plays out. Roy Moore is not going to let it go. And we'll follow out and see where this goes. Andrew Weissman, the *1 attorney under Mueller and his Mueller and Hillary Clinton posse, conducting the investigations. Try that again. Andrew Weissman, the *1 attorney behind Robert Mueller's investigation probe or whatever, we now know that he attended the Rotten Reverend Clinton's party on election night in New York. He was there. He was in the building attending that function where, of course, the Rotten Reverend, it ended up not being a victory party. It ended up being a funeral. So Andrew Weissman, that's another reason why this guy shouldn't be anywhere near this investigation. What's amazing about this is that he's that arrogant that he would publicly attend an event like this where a lot of people know who he is, a lot of media, a lot of people around, that he would attend this event knowing good and well at the very time that he's doing this that he's the FBI agent that was involved in interviewing Clinton over the email scandal, as well as Abadan and other people. He's up to his eyeballs in all these investigations, yet he shows up at the Rotten Reverend Clinton's party on the night of the election, which ended up, of course, being a funeral after she lost. But just the very fact that that he would be that make it that blaringly obvious that he's a Clinton supporter, and of course we know he's an anti-Trumper. I mean, Weissman should never have been put on Mueller's team, and he should certainly be thrown off of his team, not just because of this, but because of many other things. But this is the capper, I guess you would say, if you were James Comey. This is the capper. Andrew Weissman should go, and we should have a lot of questions for him on his way out the door. It looks like Elizabeth Warren may be challenged for her seat by Shiva Avaduri. Now, Shiva Avaduri, some of you may be familiar with him. He's actually is an Indian, meaning he's of Indian descent, as in like the country India. But he also says he has Native American blood, and probably more than Elizabeth Warren. The funny thing is, so he's an actual Indian. So will it not be very, very funny to watch and see if he goes through with it? I don't know if this is publicity stunt or whatever, but and keep in mind, he is a brilliant dude. He graduated from MIT, and he is the man who is credited as being the man who invented email. But anyway, he's an Indian, and it looks like he may be talking about running against Elizabeth Warren. So that should be a lot of fun, watching an actual Indian run against Elizabeth Warren. He should have a lot of fun with her in the debates. I mean, that will just be a fun one to watch. Well, some other thoughts on Christopher Wray and the hearings the other day. I watched the hearings again. I've watched, last time I talked to you, I watched like 5 videos, maybe 45 minutes. I've had a chance to watch some more video, and one thing's apparently clear about Christopher Wray, is, you know, I thought, and like a lot of you thought, that with all these things going on and all the corruption and politicization that we see in the FBI, that maybe Christopher Wray was doing some internal investigation and was looking into these things. But we now learn from these hearings that Christopher Wray isn't looking into anything at the FBI. As he said to 2 or 3 times when he was questioned, that he's waiting for the IG, the Inspector General's report. Now, there's an old phrase in Washington, and that is, the Inspector General's office is the place where investigations go to die. which is exactly true, and that's what Christopher Wray is hoping for. He's obviously trying to protect the FBI in that type of thing. He doesn't want to actually do the hard work of actually fixing that, fixing all the problems that you have at the FBI, which are quite obvious to everyone. It's a disaster. It's been heavily politicized, and now there's actual criminality by high-level people at the FBI. And we just learned from the Michael Flynn story. We know it's been going on throughout this entire time since Trump was a candidate, all the way up until now. It still continues to this day. The FBI is stonewalling. They will not produce the documents, will not produce the witnesses, even though they're obligated to do so. They are not an independent government to themselves. They are an agency of the executive branch, and therefore they are answerable to Congress. Congress has oversight, authority, and responsibility. They are not supposed to be stonewalled. When they ask for documents or witnesses, they should get them. The FBI is subordinate to the executive branch. But here we can see that Christopher Wray is again playing the same game that Comey and is probably his good friend Mueller, who he's worked with both of those guys in the past in other investigations. So as we learn from his bio, he comes out of the deep state. He's a Department of Justice lawyer, and anyway, he's not what we were hoping for. Let's put it that way. No shit, Sherlock Wray is not going to be doing us any favors here in trying to fix the problems at the FBI. And the very fact that he said he's waiting for the Inspector General's report to come out, after, especially since we just learned the previous Inspector General, Charles McCullough, General McCullough, just came out last week and said that he was pretty much gagged, as well as other people, when he tried to blow the whistle on the Hillary Clinton email investigation, because he's the one that discovered it. He and people in his office are the ones that discovered that and made the FBI aware of it when they discovered all those classified emails on Hillary's server. So anyway, the idea that Wray is counting on the Inspector General is a non-starter. It's a no-go. And I certainly hope, and I know members of Congress know this should, and certainly Jeff Sessions should have been paying very close attention, because Jeff Sessions, if you think that the Inspector General is going to get to the bottom of any of this going on at the FBI, where they'll get cock-blocked like everyone else, then you're kidding yourself. I don't like special counsels and special prosecutors, but who are you going to get to investigate the DOJ and the FBI? You can't get someone from the DOJ and the FBI to do that. This is what we're learning now. So clearly you would have to have someone from the outside, but if they are going to do that, it needs to be an actual someone from the outside. It doesn't mean pulling in a former FBI director, pulling in a former State Department guy, pulling in a former Justice Department guy, pulling someone in from the D.C. swamp who's associated with and has long relationships with all these people that they're supposed to be investigating. There are plenty of good attorneys, plenty of good prosecutors all across the country who don't have ties to the deep state or any of the previous players. That's the type of person that needs to be brought in, and they need to seriously look at this, because the Inspector General is not the solution to this problem, Mr. Sessions. Next up, I want to talk about something else that popped up on a previous TowerGate interview. I covered the story about Congressman Franks resigning because he was under pressure by Paul Ryan, because he supposedly solicited from two of his staffers, wanted them to maybe be a surrogate for him and his wife to have a child. And now, just so I put this in context, when I did that video, I think I got that off the AP, and a lot of times I'll go through Reuters or AP and just look at top headline news stories. And when you click on those, you'll get like one paragraph, and then there'll be a link. Now, some of them stories I'll click on the link if I'm going to expand on them, but if I'm just, going through like the headline sort of news sort of thing, I'll just kind of read the paragraph, I'll make a note to myself, and then I'll include it in my TowerGate video, and that's what I did on this particular story. I didn't really elaborate or go too deep into it, and I was kind of having some fun with it. It's a serious story, and as I do with a lot of my TowerGate news, there's serious stuff there, but sometimes I add a little, funny stuff in there. Even though sometimes you can't tell it, that's what I'm doing. But anyway, this particular story generated a lot of comments, and some very good comments, and a couple of very good points were raised. So I wanted to go ahead and address that, and I did take the time at this point to go a little deeper into this story, because I think based on the interest that was shown by a couple commenters and the obviously the interest people had in the comments they made, I thought that it warranted a little deeper investigation into the story so that we better understand it. I do appreciate all of you who commented on the story, and I read all the comments. There were comments there from Janelle and Thesaurus and Maura and Lincoln Chains and a couple other people. So it's obviously a story you guys are interested in. And, Janelle, everybody made good points. I had no problem with any of the points anybody made. Everyone is making very good points. The point that Janelle, and I think primarily Janelle and Thesaurus were making, was that, they're very troubled by the fact that it seems like you can ruin a person's life and their career based on accusations, and this is a very slippery slope to go down. And I agree 100% with both Janelle and Thesaurus on this, and I didn't mean to skip over it so lightly and not to or to make a joke of it when it's actually very serious, because these are real people's lives, and it is a dangerous thing, a slippery slope, when we get to the point where simply allegations against someone can ruin their life and their career. And so in response to you guys and Congressman Franks, in all fairness to you, I think I just want to say that I think each of these cases has to be looked at individually. You can't just say, well, first of all, anytime an accusation is made, you have to question both the accuser and the accused. You have to look at their character. You'll have to look at some history. You have to take each case one at a time, because some of these cases the women are telling the truth and these things actually happened, and in some cases the women are lying for whatever reason. And so I think maybe the way I came off in that video, which is not really the way I wanted that to come off, is that I was just throwing Mr. Franks to the wolves without giving any question that the accusers may not be telling the truth. So I get your point, and you all were correct in making that point and calling me out on that. So I plead guilty as charged to maybe not giving that the seriousness that I probably should have. But I did go ahead and do some more digging into exactly why this is, because one of the points that was made, I can't remember which one of you made the point that, it was really Paul Ryan who forced Mr. Franks to step down, and he apparently did it because amidst all the controversy that's going on, he doesn't think he would get a fair hearing anyway, and he's correct about that. A lot of these guys deserve to be taken down in the swamp. They're guilty of a lot of the stuff that's going on, but there's probably going to be some innocent people that go down as well. That's why you have to look at each and every case, and these cases should be adjudicated somewhere where people are placed under oath and we actually get this stuff out there. The idea that you can just make the allegation and that's it, and because the person made the allegation, we accept that. And so I agree 100% that that's not the way we should do it, and that we shouldn't just automatically, you're innocent till proven guilty, and until the allegations can be proven or whatever, we should give people the benefit of the doubt. And yes, you're correct, both Janelle and Thesaurus, you're both correct that maybe Franks is getting a raw deal here. I certainly agree that could very well be the case. But I did look into this a little more, and so I'll share with you a little more what I've learned about this particular case. Well, it appears that there was a Fox 9 Minnesota reporter, not just it's him that they're focusing on in the story, but there were other news reporters who were around him and observed the following. They observed and overheard a call with Representative Franks where he was on the phone and he was discussing setting up a political action committee, and they were going to start with $2 million and set up this political action committee that would go after the filibuster rule. Now, that is illegal. You cannot, as a congressman, set up a PAC like that working with outside people, because a PAC is supposed to be outside of the Congress or outside of an individual candidate. They're not supposed to be working together. That's why they set up PACs. So the congressman or member of Congress, senator, congressman, whatever, they're not allowed to participate in the formulation of a PAC from which they are going to benefit. And I don't think they can actually be involved at all. And they certainly can't be involved in helping generate the money to begin funding the PAC. So it's very likely that, and this reporter from Fox 9 Minnesota, his name is Tom Lydon, and he's the one that's being quoted in the story. as being the one who broke this story. Now, none of this was mentioned about the Franks situation, but it's very likely that the reason that Paul Ryan was forced Trent Franks to, Trent Franks forced him to step down was because more of this issue about getting caught up in starting this pack, which is illegal, may have had more to do with that than the sexual allegation. I don't know. That's a speculation. But certainly, Paul Ryan and the Republicans do not want an investigation into Republicans working with PACs or any type of thing. This is a type of scandalous story that you do not want to have hanging around your neck going into a midterm election or any election for that matter. So it is possible that Trent Franks may be more in trouble because of his maybe getting involved in starting this pack than he is with the sexual allegation. But on the issue of the sex allegation, we learned a couple things. Is that, first of all, keep in mind, there was 2 staffers who filed the complaint, the harassment complaint. But there were others who apparently did not sign on to the complaint for whatever reason, but they too had situations that they weren't comfortable with around Trent Franks in his office as staffers. So it's not just these 2, it's some others. It also turns out that it wasn't him approaching these women who are quite young women. These are like 20-year-old women that, and he's like 60. That it wasn't just one time. Not at all. He approached him many times, multiple times, and in fact he at some point started offering them money, as in like $1 million. And then they weren't interested or whatever, but he kept pushing the issue, even getting the ante up to $5 million that he was offering one of these 2 or both of these 2 staffers to have sex with him. And again, this is something else that's being pointed out. He wasn't talking about a medical procedure using their DNA or letting them be impregnated or whatever. No, he was actually talking to these 2 staffers about the method by which he wanted to impregnate them was through sexual activity. He was propositioning them for sex. He wasn't just saying, I want you to be a surrogate to my wife. He was he was wanting them to have sex with him. Now that may have been his reason to have the child or to be a surrogate, but the 2 staffers filed their complaint because he was not just once but multiple times, I guess, pressuring them to have sex, offering them up to $5 million to have sex. Now, the reason, he says, is to have, a child. Whether or not the women believe that, whether that's true, whether that's false, whether that's a good reason, whether that's a bad reason, I don't know. But these are the facts as they stand, as I understand them. And the source on that was 2 sources, both sources, one being Politico, is one of the sources, and the Washington Examiner is the other source. Those are the 2 sources for the facts that I just gave you. So it appears that it's not quite as innocent as Mr. Franks makes it sound, but it's also quite possible that these 2 staffers could just have been, exaggerating or blowing things out of proportion or whatever. But my gut instinct, and when I went through this story the first time, it was just my gut that said this is probably not a very good idea. It's not what I would have done. You're in the workplace on company time. It's just him. His wife's not present. There's no attorney present. There's no one present representing the women. No one, legal. I mean, it's not the way that you would go about doing this. If you wanted a surrogate, it's just not the way, to me, that you would do it. It's just the way he did it was not right. And that may be his biggest failing. But again, this could all be have very little to do, or else it was icing on the cake, but it may have a lot more to do with this fact that he tried to set up a pack. That's probably what motivated Paul Ryan more than the sexual harassment complaints. Let's see. Yeah, I mean, the Democrats are talking about a government shutdown. A lot of times this works against the party in power, but I'm not so sure it may work that way this time because it's over the DACA. It's over that law there. But, you know, when you look at the polls, it shows that about 68% of people are opposed to the current immigration policy, DACA, the lottery system, and all these other things. So on the immigration issue, Trump and the Republicans are on the correct side of this issue. If the Democrats attempt to do a government shutdown over the fact that they can't get their DACA stuff into the tax bill or the funding of the government bill, either of those, if they can't get that they're going to shut down the government or whatever, they'll lose this fight on that argument. So we'll have to wait and see if they actually are stupid enough to go out and try to do a government shutdown over the budget, because they've reached a 2-week, you know, they got enough money approved for 2 weeks, but in 2 more weeks they'll have to come back and have this fight again to get the budget done. And if at that point Schumer and Pelosi want to have this battle and shut down the government over the DACA issue, that's going to be a huge loser for them politically and a big winner for the Republicans. So if the numbers are that strong on your side, maybe you go through with it. But I don't think that you ever really have any real winners in a government shutdown. You know, sometimes the president can win if he can triangulate himself, but the Congress almost always loses in these types of things. So anyway, we'll just have to watch and see what's happening there. And it looks like that's all we have time for today. So I do appreciate you tuning in to this Saturday evening video. Sorry it's up so late again, but I'll be back tomorrow, hopefully much earlier, and got something really interesting for you tomorrow on the dossier, something really different. So anyway, I'll be back tomorrow and we'll see how it all goes. But you guys enjoy your Saturday evening, and I'll talk to you next time. Good night.